Should we
Should we what, Terry? Should we what?
should we sing along?
No joke. I have a good follow on YouTube. Follow is too strong a word. I have somebody that keeps popping up in my suggestions on YouTube, a rock star who was very popular in the mid 2000s. And it's just him, a microphone, and a guitar as his intro. And he plays his intro and sings it live every single time. And it makes me feel a lot better about how I do my intro here. Because otherwise it feels kind of low rent. But then this guy's got it he's really got it down. So maybe we should sing it.
I don't know. I like the green and stuff,
Who
hippie.
did you find today?
Oh, our trend continues, Russ.
You keep bringing new and interesting people to this podcast, and I feel like I'm not carrying my weight.
Well, you're totally carrying your weight. You give us green thingies at the beginning, and that's your and interesting conversation. So our guest today, and the trend that I speak of is really good human being first, and like really smart and interesting. And he's via Kentucky or from Kentucky via Melbourne, Australia. He's a surgeon. His name is Tim Dawson. So, welcome, Tim.
Tim, I have a critically important question for you. And I got to make sure I get it right. So I'm going to refer to my notes here. This is the opening question. It actually came in from a listener, from Terry in Kentucky. Tim, as a surgeon, have you ever tried to do anything like open a purse and not been able to do it?
There was one time very recently where I was in public in front of a lot of people, and they all knew I was a surgeon, supposedly good with my hands, and the purse was not able to be opened. It was like Excalibur. It was physically unable to be opened, and then I handed it to Terry's girlfriend, and she opened it in like 3 seconds. And so,
Can we do a guessing game about this?
Oh, 10 random right off the bat.
Tim, is that okay? Can we do a guessing game?
let's go.
I'm going to guess a couple of scenarios about what happened with the purse, and you're going to tell me if this is why it was physically impossible to open it. And you're going to give me like a hot or colder. So if it's like pretty far away, then say cold. If it's pretty close, then say, hot when I'm like really close to the answer. Terry, throw in a comment here if you feel like there's information that I should have. All right. So were you on a stage while this happened?
Very, very cold.
Okay. Was there a magician anywhere nearby?
Not that I know of, so I'm also going to say cold.
Okay. Was the point of the exercise to somehow embarrass you, fool you, or make a monkey of you?
In retrospect, yes. But I didn't think so. So cold still.
Did you feel overconfident in your ability to open the purse?
Oh, always. So warmer. You're getting warmer.
Okay. So I feel like I have the exact scenario down. What happened was, well, exact might be too strong a word. I'm really stressing myself out now. You made a claim that you could easily do this thing, and someone argued with you, and then in light of the argument, you tried to do the thing and you couldn't do the thing because you didn't understand how the clasp and the mechanism of the purse worked, and it was specifically designed to be secure against accidental opening.
Yeah, nailed it. So warm. We were at a bar, and they couldn't open the purse. And I very confidently was like, "This is ridiculous. It's just a purse. This is how you open it." And grabbed the purse from them.
Never a great start.
And absolutely could not open the purse. And so then of course I blamed the purse. I thought this was a dysfunctional purse, clearly,
as one does. Yeah.
Which my wife had just paid way too much money for. And then again, Terry's girlfriend walked up and opened it literally without looking at it,
Five
handed it
seconds.
back to me in 5 seconds. And so,
Yeah.
Because it was
first was not
it was a
instructional.
specialized purse mechanism of some
No, it
kind.
was
No.
basically you pull it open. That was it. That's the whole mechanism. You
Wow.
grab it and
So
you open it.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, so I was overthinking the whole thing.
You should have seen the 20 some years of formal education, surgeon, and the graduate degree in data science, studying this thing
Yeah,
intently, looking for the
yeah.
trapdoor. And
There's no. Well, I trapdoored it too. I'm like, oh, there must have been a mechanism.
the
No,
mechanism, the mechanism can pound sand. The mechanism was a faulty design that is designed only for the female brain.
Well,
So
this leads me to another question. Tim, are you ever not thinking about your work on some level?
absolutely. I try my best to not think about my work at all times when I'm not at work.
Okay. All right. Good. We've had a couple of people that um, I would say they don't turn it off, you know? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So like if you want to be in rock and roll, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be living and breathing rock and roll all the time. And I actually don't know anything about medicine or surgery or doctors or hospitals or pharmacists or did I already say medicine? Basically don't know anything about that. Um, so I wondered if being a doctor is just sort of like it never. You're a doctor, right? Is that
Yes.
is it appropriate to call you a doctor, or am I supposed to call you a surgeon?
Either one works.
Terry, you want to take over and bail me out here?
no, I think you're doing fine. I think you're doing. Here's where I think we should start. So we were patenting it a few days ago,
Oh yeah.
and you had an endoluminal stomach thingy to surgery device that we neither one could bear. We couldn't spell it. But we said Tim would be the perfect person to talk to about this.
Well, yeah. While I look this thing up, let me ask you: do you still learn stuff a lot?
Oh, all the time.
Is
All
it
the time.
hard stuff? Is it quick stuff? Like tell me about a quick, easy thing you learn and a hard, difficult, massive, important thing that you learn, and how you do that. Given that we're not in school, you're not still in school, right?
No, thankfully.
So
I'm
tell me
2 years
about
out of the
post
schooling.
school learning,
I
and I'm
want
gonna
to. I
find
want
this
to.
patent item.
I have a part B to
Yeah,
this.
go.
So weird that that's where you went because I have
Well,
a part B to this that may or may not be a little more sinister.
okay. Well, to answer
Okay.
the learning, and then then answer Terry's part B.
So easy learning. So surgery is much more collaborative, probably than you would know, and so I will scrub in with my partners. So if they're doing an interesting case, a hard case, etc., they'll call me and say, "Come help me with this case and come help me with this surgery." And that's actually my favorite thing to do is to not be the main person, to be the right hand man, and to be in there and just helping out because you learn a lot. You do surgeries maybe that you wouldn't have booked on your own, but you learn a lot of small things that way. Um, Big things. So I do robotic surgery, and when I came out of training, I had done a decent amount, but I've kind of moved my practice from being hernias, gallbladders, smaller things like that, into pretty complex um, hernia repairs, colon surgeries, hiatal hernias, etc. And so there's actually formal ways you go observe kind of the pros and talk to them about how they do and do everything, and then you watch YouTube videos, and between those two things, you figure it out.
Terry, can I throw a YouTube question in here for
Roll.
your part B?
Yes.
So when I said I don't know anything about all things that are your life, there's one thing I watched this guy on probably TikTok, and he paints a picture of surgeons as being very, very mean to residents. Is that something that you've experienced?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think I've probably seen that YouTube video, and it's it's more real than you would want to.
Is
Residency is
that
terrible. It's like I cannot overstate how bad residency is.
Is it a filtering thing? I mean, you're describing a very collaborative, I wouldn't quite go so far as to say warm, but certainly like a team effort, we're all in this together sort of scenario, which sounds like the opposite of this guy describing residency. And you're saying that the way he describes it is very light compared to reality.
Yeah. You go to medical school, then you pick your specialty, you go to residency, and then you graduate residency, and then you're a full blown surgeon. So you're technically a doctor after medical school, but you've got to do a residency.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm done with residency. So what I'm talking about is my partners and I will be very collaborative because I've made it through that hazing period.
The ringer.
The ringer. But in residency, no, it is not. It is not collaborative.
So I've got a part B. I've got a part B to your part A question you just asked, because we're all about detours and getting in the weeds. In the pecking order of prestige of medicine and doctors, who's lower on the totem pole than internal medicine doctors?
You really set me up for this one, huh?
Yeah, and I'm going to hope you have friends that are watching too.
I can't answer that question.
Well, you're agreeing by default that internal medicine doctors are the lowest on the totem pole.
Veterinarians.
We have a very good co-friend who would know like the answer to this. So here is the pro of internal medicine. They work for a week and they're off for a week. And that's it. That's the pro.
So a teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher.
So they work for 7 days and then they have seven days off. So that's what they have going for them.
So let's get a little more in your wheelhouse then. In the pecking order of prestige of surgeons, who's the lowest on the totem pole? And I have no clue on this.
Probably general surgeons, probably us. Yeah. So pecking order is like, if you look at it like the amount of good OR time, like during the day, during the week, we lose. We fail that. We're operating at nighttime and weekends.
Oof.
So I think general surgeons are at the bottom of the list.
So here's my original part B. And this is a little more, not sinister, but a little more serious. I'm interested in, we all know that there's a certain demographic of pharmaceutical rep that floods most like MD offices. Who's got your ear? Your group, who wants to sell you stuff? And I don't mean just pharmaceutical reps. Like I'm assuming medical device companies, like who's got your ear and how persistent are they?
Top of the list would be mesh reps for a general surgeon. So different type of hernia repair meshes. Staple device reps, so different type of the way you hook colons back together, etc. That's a big one. Laparoscopic, just companies, so just like which camera tower are you going to use, which those type of things are big on the list. Less like direct medicines for us, because thankfully we don't write that many medicines. But it's mostly like, device companies that would be the biggest ones that approach us.
So Terry, that's a fascinating question. Terry, what made you think about that?
Oh, well, I've got a part C and then I'll answer your question.
Okay. Maybe part C answers my question.
I don't think so. I think it's going to make it muddier. If internal medicine doctors are the bottom of the totem pole in medicine.
Can we go back and blur out my face and change my voice again?
I want to say
the original plan was better, and then we should do this again.
For the record, at no point did Dr. Dawson say anything at all about anyone on a totem pole other than himself. The only person he ranked was himself as a general surgeon.
He agreed in default.
I disagree with Terry in the name of Tim's honor
Part
and
C.
dignity.
So you established earlier that you think internal medicine physicians should be banished to the Siberian tundra.
Yes.
Okay.
Direct quote.
Direct quote. Um, of the device people and, all the salespeople, which group is at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of prestige? Like when you see that they're in the hallway with their donuts or their Olive Garden or their Panera Bread,
Right.
you're like, which group are you like, just get them out of here?
That's a fantastic question.
Any medicine rep, so anyone who's selling a drug, who's selling an actual medicine, because it doesn't really, it's not helpful, right? Because we already know all the medicines we're going to use, and it doesn't really change your day to day. And it's usually a medicine that you don't want to use, doesn't feel that helpful, and is really expensive. And so I would say that at least the device reps have like something that they're bringing to you. So it's like a new technology, there's data, it's a new thing. Usually the medicine, the drug reps are bringing something that you don't care about or don't need. And they're also very persistent.
And they're like 22 and bimbo-ish.
Yeah.
Male and female. Male and
absolutely.
female.
Yeah, both sides of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Russ.
Terry, what is the worldview that this is coming from? That's leading to have you been wronged by medicine at some point?
No.
Have you been righted by medicine?
I was a pre-med undergrad. We know this. We've talked about this. Have I been righted by medicine?
Did you ever have Tommy John?
No.
What?
No, but here's the thing. All right. I just wish that it had evolved faster. And like the technology of medicine kept up with the consumer space, because I have a scar like 16 miles wide on my abdomen from an appendectomy that today Tim does in like 2 seconds while he's eating a donut and, whatever. I mean, these are like routine procedures today.
Tim,
Anyway.
what's your favorite procedure?
That's a good one. Appendectomy is a great one.
Yeah,
it's a 15 minutes. As long as it's straightforward. Patient comes in sick. They leave feeling so much better and happy. The complication rate's super low.
And an appendectomy is the removal of the appendix?
The appendix. My favorite surgery, though, is a robotic inguinal hernia repair, for sure.
I'm sorry, you're going to need to repeat that in very, very slowly. A robotic?
I
got that part.
Inguinal.
That's with a F?
Inguinal. Inguinal.
It sounds like a member of the iguana family.
With an I
yes.
as in inguinal?
Yeah.
And then an N?
Hernia.
G-U?
Yeah. I-N. Don't make me spell in public.
Spell check says I got it. It's I-N-G-U-I-N-A-L.
Yeah.
Hernia.
Hernia repair. You're
maybe
Googling this right now. Look up a video. It's pretty cool.
Is that the one where your intestines start to poke out through your abs?
Through your groin.
The groinal abs. Are there? Do the abs go down that far?
The lower abs that are closer to your groin.
Yeah. Maybe I do know more about medicine than I thought. Terry's always telling me that I've got hidden knowledge that it's just latent, waiting to come out.
Yeah, it's
so I'm gonna fuse a couple things together here.
Please do.
So Russ is secretly a zoologist. Like he knows everything about every species under the sun. So
there was going to be a bird quiz today. That's true. There's not going to be, but I thought about it.
So we're going to start with another animal at this point.
Yeah.
In respect to Tim's homeland. Tim?
There's a lot of flightless birds in Australia, actually.
Question for you. Are kangaroos indeed just deer that learn to walk?
Yes. Absolutely, yes. Yeah. They are looked at exactly the same as deer.
Could you do surgery on a kangaroo tomorrow?
Absolutely. If it didn't kick me first.
Right. Well, assuming that, it was tranquilized in some fashion.
You guys ever seen a six-pack on a kangaroo?
It's got to be similar.
They got abs like
Yeah, they at least
they'd have
they
like an
stand
8
up.
or a
So
10
like,
pack. They stand
that's
up. They
fine.
have huge abs. So I'm
Huge
sure they
abs.
herniate. They must herniate.
They must herniate.
They're marsupials, which is a mammal.
Oh,
So
here we
that
go.
means
Here we go.
That might make it more difficult. I don't know where to make the incision with the pouch
I'm pulling up a reference
in the
image
way. I don't
of
know if I would
where
like make it inside the pouch or above the
you
pouch.
could do it on a male kangaroo. I don't think they would have a pouch.
Well, actually, that's a great. I don't actually know the answer. Do they have a? I don't know. Do they have a pouch? You
Terry,
should
what
figure
do you
that out
think?
right now. I need to know the answer to that.
I think I'm gonna phone a friend. I'm gonna call my friend Russ in Virginia and ask. He's a PhD in zoology.
Okay, here's my rationale. My rationale is the pouch is as with all marsupials is the carrying thing for a newborn baby. Live young, they drink milk, the nipples are in there, the baby hangs out in there. It's kind of like how human babies have the fourth trimester where they can't do anything and they poop all the time and they cry and they're helpless. And if there was a pack of wolves, they'd like scoop them up and steal all the babies, right? They're helpless. So the marsupial family of mammals have these pouches that's basically like fuzzy armor for these little tiny babies. And I'm like, well, a man kangaroo doesn't carry the babies, unlike penguins and seahorses. So then it's probably not going to have a pouch.
Do we have an
Tim,
answer?
does this logic check out?
The logic checks out, but I would be really happy if it did have a pouch.
I would be too. They would be a vestigial pouch.
Yeah, it would be. Which is back to the appendix. It's a vestigial organ.
Is it really?
It is.
So I want to ask about the appendix.
Can I jump in here to say that male kangaroos do not have pouches? Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I might
Terry.
get my citizenship taken away for not knowing the answer to that.
I think so. At the appendix, from an evolutionary standpoint, this is one of these things that feels like a wives' tale to me. Apparently, the appendix and the gallbladder, and there may be a couple of additional organs, are no longer evolutionary necessary. Do you have an opinion on that?
So the appendix is made, we think, to digest very heavy fiber like bark. So animals that eat like bark, very heavy wood, have huge appendixes. We don't do that anymore. So that's what we think. The other thing, though, is the appendix does have some immune function. So the base of the appendix has a ring of lymph nodes. And that's actually the cause of most appendicitis in kids. So they'll get a virus and those lymph nodes will swell and it will block off the appendix, causing appendicitis. But that's all we know it does. The gallbladder stores bile, which helps you break down fat. So if you eat a fatty meal, it injects extra bile into your intestines to break that down. But your liver can make up for not having a gallbladder. And so there's not a lot of changes once you take your gallbladder out as far as GI function. But here's something
Tim,
interesting.
do you feel like that we barely know anything, or do you feel like we know so much? Which
that's
camp
where
are
I was
you?
going with that. So here's the interesting part, right? Is we don't know what we don't know, right? And so who knows what the appendix, like one day, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we might be like, oh, that was really important. We shouldn't have been doing that for a long time, until you've done the study, that's what we think.
Do you ever think about Civil War surgeons chopping off limbs left and right with hacksaws and stuff, and being like, these guys were me, but if only it was 200 years ago, I'd have been hacking limbs with a saw instead of robot surgery through a tiny incision.
I don't think about that very often, but yeah. But
it's probably good not to be thinking about that regularly. It might get in your head a little.
Yeah, that was actually the first surgery I ever did as a medical student. Was what's called a guillotine below knee amputation, where it's a rope with blades on it with two handles, and you just saw through the skin, through the bone, through the skin, and take the foot off. It's an emergency surgery for someone with a really bad foot infection.
That doesn't sound high tech or
No,
robotic-y.
no, 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 no. It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that.
That's a good one for you to get initiated with, though. I feel like, do you want
Yeah,
to be a surgeon? Take this medieval tool and hack off an ankle.
that's basically what happened.
Russ, are you still with us, or have you gone
No, I'm still
silent
here.
in the Googles?
I'm still here.
I have
So
one
yeah,
last
go ahead. Go,
one last
Terry.
follow up to the
Please.
Civil War surgeon question. Do you feel like in a pinch you could do surgery on yourself in an emergency situation with crude rudimentary tools like kitchen knife? You're home by yourself, you fall, your arm's pinned below the refrigerator somehow in a weird accident, and you can't move.
Can I take my arm off?
Can you take your own arm off?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, I could handle that. But I also can't open a purse in public. So I think it might be similar, but in my head, I want to think that I can take my arm off if I needed to.
This would be when you say you could do it. Are we talking about the procedure of functioning let's? I don't want to get into the gritty details of the arm and the fridge. More generally, you have a necessity to perform surgery on yourself. Are you physically capable of it? But then there's also, because of Terry's gruesome situation, I'm also imagining the psychology of this. Like, can you actually,
Yeah.
bite a bullet and do surgery, do field expedient surgery on yourself?
I think so. I want to hope so.
Yeah. Terry, could you?
Well, I mean, I also took a turn at opening a purse that I couldn't figure out how to open.
Yeah,
so
but what if the purse was your arm and the bar was a fridge and the bar had fallen on your purse?
So I have a really elevated self-image of what I think my capabilities are, and I like to think in a crisis that
Right.
sitting here today, I'm like, oh yeah, I could hack it off, but could I? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
Can
Tim,
I ask
how do you
so like in a zombie apocalypse, like are you guys in a zombie apocalypse?
Oh, this is going to be good. I have a lot of answers to these.
Do you survive that? Do you try to survive that? Do you have a plan? Because a fridge falls on my arm, I think I can cut it off. But if zombies come, like no.
So we've had this discussion. We've actually had this discussion here.
Not interested. I don't want to live.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Like there's no more robotic surgeries to perform. I don't want to be here.
They can have me.
Terry, would you make it?
I gotta ask. The psychology of cutting your arm. This is prompted a question.
Too much for you. Wait, hold on, real quick. Right. Tim, have you ever seen the movie Saw or any of the sequels?
Yes.
Terry, have you ever seen the movie Saw or any of the sequels?
I want you to answer that question.
There's not a snowball's chance that Terry has seen these movies. So, Tim, this is like a between you and me thing. What's about to happen is just going to be Terry rehashing a 12-film series by asking you questions that have already been thoroughly and deeply explored in this set of movies.
No, this is a medical question.
Please.
Do you ever go in for surgery to perform surgery, and you got the scalpel or whatever tool is cutting flesh? Do you think about that cut, like other than what is from a procedural standpoint? I've got to do this to perform this thing. Do you step back and visibly see I am about to cut into a human being's body, or has that left a long time ago?
Left.
Not ever. Not one time.
Never.
Ever. I love it.
0%.
Did that
absolutely
take
zero?
That take a while?
It's one of those chicken and egg questions. Like, I don't know if like you're predisposed to go into surgery because you didn't have that, or if it's trained out of you. It's just it's so technical. It's so this is the step. This is the step. That's the step. That whole piece of it just does not enter the realm. And all the whole charade around it, like the patient's asleep, the patient is draped out. It's like very sterile. It's very this step by step. It's not like the one surgery that actually that um, you do feel that way, which is probably not what you would think, would be organ procurement. So when you do a when you procure organs after someone dies, that's the only surgery that you're in that there is actually a moment of silence and a whole section before you start the surgery that's like about this person's life and what you're about to do, and it's heavy. That that is the one surgery that you actually feel, you talk about the person more than anyone else.
So it's not a procedure. You get the human view of the thing that you're about to do. Like
Right.
there's a soul there.
Yeah, there's a whole section right before you start that's read basically as a, like, this person has given their life for someone else and this is what we're here to do in a moment of silence, and it does change things a little bit.
How do you manage the heavy mental and emotional stuff? Like, first of all, do you even manage them? And if you do, I mean, so everybody who comes to you potentially could die from the stuff that's going on, either that they had before or that from, complications from surgery, routine, or botched, right? Like, it could be your fault, it could be not your fault, it could be anesthesiology. There's a million things that can happen. How do you wrap your head around all that and go home at the end of the day without like carrying the weight of every single medical thing that you had to do? You can answer that as surgeon, or as, general practitioner, or as medical student, like, take your pick.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of our job, obviously. I
You
think
mean
that's why
besides the surgery?
sorry.
You mean besides, it's the hardest part besides the surgery?
No, I mean the surgery part's not actually hard. I mean the surgery part it's technical, right? It's You can teach anybody to do surgery given enough time and hours. I mean this is the first step, this is the second step thing. It's the rest of it, the decision making, is the hard part of surgery, and so I think that's why we train so hard. I mean, I think that's yeah, we joke about residency, but I think that's why it's not like any other job. I mean, you do 5 years of 80 to 120 hours a week, 4 days off a month for 5 years. And so you really have to be confident that you've learned everything you need to know to do a good job. And you do the best you can. And sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. And you just got to wake up and do it again the next day.
My pilot relatives describe that as a new day, new plane.
So the question, if you're starting over today, are you knowing what you know? Are you going back to medical school and back to the surgery route and all that? Are you doing it again? You enjoy it? It's worth it? Or are there off ramps that you wish you had explored?
So this is something funny that us as surgeons talk about all the time. I bet you wouldn't find a surgeon, probably not most doctors, definitely a surgeon that would say they would do it again. But if you actually strip that off and say, okay, then what would you do? I think I would end up in the same spot, if that makes sense. I think it's hard as a 18-year-old, 22-year-old, 25-year-old going through this process to really understand what it's going to be like when you're 35 and you're a surgeon, and so you get there and it's a little bit like not a letdown, but you just can't imagine the pressure that is once you're finally there, because it's always you're moving through high school, college, and it's always like you're moving towards something, and so finally you get there and you're done and you're there, and it's I will say it doesn't necessarily have the same feeling that you thought it was going to have, as far as you just can't fathom the stress or the pressure, but also um, there aren't a lot of other jobs like this. So once I've done this, I don't think you go back and just show up to a 9 to 5. I don't. I don't know that I would ever be fulfilled. And also, I think my makeup, my drive, passion, I think would have led me to the same place again, whether we can like that or not.
How long have you been doing the robotic surgery?
3 years.
Do you find that it's still as inherently cool as it was when you first heard the words robotic surgery?
No, but it's still awesome.
Our surgeons, there are some radiologists, we're talking about you. There are some areas of medicine that are scared of AI and scared of technology. Are surgeons? Do surgeons talk about it? Is a surgeon worried that some booger eater, in his mom's basement is going to just control a robot from a remote location and perform surgery, or the robot is going to do it itself? Is that a thing surgeons talk about, or is that relegated to other forms of medicine?
We don't, but we should. It's going to happen. I mean, so I think by the end of my career, everything will look very different. I think it will be sub specialized. So I think as now I'm a general surgeon, even that is going out. There's subspecialties of our field that are kind of taking over. So everyone's getting more specialized. But I think in the future there'll be someone who only takes out gallbladders, and that's what they do all day, every single day. They do thousands of them a year, and they're not necessarily located at the place where you're getting your gallbladder out, because you don't need to be. And so, like I said before, you can train anyone to be a surgeon. I mean, the technical part is not the hard part. And so I think you will have, just like they do in other medical specialties where you have nurse practitioners, you have other extenders that are doing the kind of day-to-day work. You're going to have someone who's a surgical PA who is just trained to do the technical portion of the surgery. And then you have the surgeons or the people who've gone to 4 years of school and training that are actually making the decision who needs surgery, those type of things that are a little bit more difficult. Because right now you can actually, the technology exists where I could do surgery sitting right here in my house at my hospital. It's not approved. Like, no one's going to let me do that. But that technology is already there. And so to think that won't change the dynamic is kind of crazy, right? I mean, why does it need to be me doing your surgery when there's someone who can say I've done 2,000, 10,000 of these exact procedures?
I have a question related to that. If I'm going to go get a surgery,
You're gonna go pick one up.
I'm going to go get a surgery. I want to know about like somebody has to be your first gallbladder. Somebody like, is this an inside joke? Is there a way that I should find out that it's the surgeon's first time? Is there a secret line on this? Do I find a friend surgeon and have them do it first? Or do I just look for somebody that I feel like I can trust and then just sort of don't ask the question because I don't want to know the answer?
No, don't do that. Don't do that at all. There are a lot of people who are bad at this, which is kind of the scary part, right? And you don't know that. And a lot of times it's people who are well known,
Highly credentialed.
credentials. They've done XYZ, but a lot of those people actually technically aren't great. So unless you know someone in the field, it's very scary. People will ask a lot, like, how many of these have you done? How long have you been doing this? That's always fun. You can ask all those questions.
What time is it? I think I started yesterday.
Is there a better secret question that will get me? Well, like if it's your first time doing this, or if you're pretty new and I'm about to jump on the operating table, like if you answer me truthfully and say I've done this 6 times, I would probably be, if you answered that like truthfully, I'd probably be like, can we not do this? I'd be like, do I have any other options?
There's no secret question. Just ask them. Just straight up look in their face and ask them their outcomes. Say, how many times have you, and be very specific, because there are also ways that you can answer that question.
You can answer it truthfully while still.
Sometimes there are sarcastic answers that are real. Well, that's my first time.
Do you want to? So this is a real thing. The last time I had a very minor surgery done, I found someone on Reddit who said that Dr. Bernstein did a great job. There was more to that sentence because it was specific to the surgery. It was like, Dr. Bernstein did a great job with the thing. And then I'm like, all right, then we're doing this. I'm going to Dr. B. And then he pulls up to the gurney that I'm on. I'm like stripped down to a paper sack, and he comes up to me and explains a bunch of stuff to me about the surgery that's about to happen. And he's like, any questions? And I'm like, yeah, who are you? Because this was in COVID, and I'd done like a consultation over a Zoom call. And then I get there and he's like, scrubbed out and with a hat on and a mask. I can only see his eyes. I didn't hear a single word he said to me about what the surgery was going to be, because I was just like, this is just another person telling me stuff. I don't know what this means at all.
Right.
And he's like, well, I'm Dr. Bernstein.
You're like, can we do this again? You start again.
I was like, oh, was any of the stuff you just told me important? Because I was over here worried about who you were. And it went fine, I think. I mean, I don't really know.
I have two questions, and then Russ, you take us out. These are like fairly esoteric discussion questions, and I don't know why I'm bringing these up at the end, but I am. So, how much of healthcare do you feel like is just treating poor metabolic health generally? Like, how much of things that get to you, and I know you do gallbladders and things that are congenital or, just happen, but how much of healthcare from an expenditure or from a, percent capacity standpoint is just people live really unhealthy lives and metabolically they're challenged?
I mean, I can't give you a percent, but I can tell you that's why I'm a surgeon. I actually came into medical school from a public health background. And spent time living in Ecuador, Guatemala. And primary care is hard, because of that exact thing. You catch people so late, and it's hard to fix a lot of those issues. And so in surgery, it's nice to have sometimes when someone shows up with an infected appendix and you just fix it and they go home and they feel better. And so that's why I changed what I wanted to do. But I think public health is much more important than anything that I do every day.
So that's the question that I wanted to get to is, I feel like, tell me where I'm wrong, because I'm sure I am, but just tell me where. I feel like if I have an acute condition, this is the best place in the world to be. If I have something that an accident, a trauma of some sort, or an acute condition of any type, there is no better medical situation to be in than in the United States. But holistically, our healthcare is jacked because there's no sort of preventative posture to our healthcare system. It's either pills or, it's devices, things that can be billed. It's for profit, and that's not a bad thing. That's why we have the innovation schemes or the innovation infrastructure that we have. But how does medicine go from being the gold standard in the world from an acute standpoint and like down there with, countries around the equator in terms of preventative health?
I want to jump in, Terry, and defend America's honor and say that when you look at life expectancy, the United States is somewhat comfortably in the top 50.
Sometimes in expenditure,
we're number 47 out of all of the countries.
And what's our expenditure is number one, right? I mean, it's got to be
hands down.
Easily.
But there's a nuance to that, though, that I don't think most people appreciate. The United States funds, whether it's pharmaceuticals or a lot of the technical innovations, we fund that R&D here, and the rest of the world benefits from it, by and large. So much, especially pharmaceuticals, but so much of medical technology is funded in the United States and then sent to the rest of the world in their more, sort of socially conscious healthcare cost structures, they don't pay. We pay for the costs of our healthcare. Americans subsidize the cost of a lot of that. Anyway, I'm curious to get your take on how do you think how does the healthcare model move to be more impactful in a preventative sense, and or does it?
So the number, I mean, our life expectancy, all that stuff you were talking about, the biggest thing in this country is the disparities in healthcare. It's actually insane. There was I think in Lou magazine back, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was an awesome article that looked at the zip code in which you live in Louisville and your life expectancy. And you're talking like 10 plus years of difference depending on what zip code you're from. And so that is the biggest thing, is that uh, the nation is not the same. If you look at people from different places, different populations, there's just different access to everything. And that starts from birth. I mean, it starts from day one. And so I think uh, the ability to have access to the high level, crazy, care that we have here is amazing. But also we miss the boat when it comes to a lot of, early intervention for a lot of things that you're talking about.
Yeah. I yield my time, Your Honor.
Am I the Your Honor?
You're the Your Honor.
That seems aggressive, given given the court of medicine in which I have next to no knowledge. If this is kangaroo court, obviously I'm bringing the highest level of knowledge.
And we have yet again come full circle.
Tim, could I trouble you to come back and talk about robot surgery sometime?
Absolutely.
I feel like Terry and I met via robots, and neither of us mentioned the word robot except for your robot surgery. We didn't talk anything about robot surgery. I have 1,000 non-animal kingdom related robot things. And I feel like this was extremely enlightening. Maybe not as much for Terry, given his extensive background in the field of medicine or pre-medicine. Is pre-medicine even a field?
Extensive. Yes, extensive.
Given his expensive background in medicine, he may not have learned as much as I did, but I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through, what it's like. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Robot surgery is pretty cool. We should definitely talk about that in detail at some point.
All right.
It's pretty
Tim Dawson, robot surgeon. Terry Miller, podcast host. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.